another hour of our coverage here today. And Jeremy, I saw in some notes this morning that you were there covering the night that he was drafted into the NBA in Philadelphia.
Well, no, it was actually the day that he had the press conference in high school announcing that he was going to the NBA instead of going to college. And I was the producer. Sal Palantonio was the reporter at Lower Merion High School. And I'll never forget that presence, that aura that he had as a 17-year-old. I'd never seen anything like it. And when I think of Kobe Bryant now, 24 years after that moment, it is that total lack of self-doubt, that incredible ability to believe in himself. We see the greatest athletes sometimes racked with doubt. I never saw it from Kobe Bryant.
No.
Starting then.
Yes, from that time. Again, we have another hour coming your way here as we will spend that hour remembering Kobe Bryant, who lost his life in a helicopter accident yesterday. We continue this morning on ESPN, and that is a live picture of downtown Los Angeles, right outside the Staples Center, which has been set up as something of a makeshift shrine to Kobe Bryant. This morning, there were huge crowds there through much of the night in L.A. The next home game the Lakers will play will be tomorrow night in that building. The Lakers and the Clippers will play each other, and one can only imagine what that scene will be like there tomorrow in Los Angeles. And we welcome you if you're just joining us to ESPN this morning in our program Get Up. Mike Greenberg and Laura Rutledge. Jay Williams is here, Jalen Rose, Stephen A. Smith, Jeremy Schaap. We will bring Ramona Shelburne in from Los Angeles in just a moment as we continue to cover the death yesterday of the legendary basketball figure Kobe Bryant. Here is the very latest. A person familiar with the investigation tells ESPN the helicopter in which Kobe Bryant was traveling was in a climbing left turn about 2,400 feet high before it dove to the ground about 40 minutes after takeoff from John Wayne Airport in Orange County. Further, the source told ESPN the pilot had only moments before contacted air traffic control that he had begun climbing to go above a layer of clouds.
Do you know there was an issue of visibility and a low ceiling? The actual conditions at the time of impact, that is still yet to be determined, and we'll have that with the NTSB shortly.
Our team will be looking at the history of the pilot and whatever crew was on board. We'll be looking at maintenance records of the helicopter. We will be looking at records of the owner and operator of the helicopter and a number of other things that we look at as part of the investigation.
Among those who were on board were Kobe and Gianna Bryant. They were on their way to a youth basketball game at the Mamba Sports Academy. She was his 13-year-old daughter. Also on board, college baseball coaching legend John Altobelli with his wife and daughter. Christina Mauser, a basketball coach at an Orange County, California private school and mother of 3. Middle school student Peyton Chester, her mother Sarah, and the pilot, whose name has not yet been released. Meanwhile, a source told ESPN's Om Young-Masuk that the Lakers found out about Kobe Bryant's death while on their team plane flying home from Philadelphia. That is a visibly shaken LeBron James wiping his eyes with tissues and walking alone from the Lakers plane after it landed in Southern California. And of course, the reaction across the NBA yesterday was extraordinary. Grief-stricken players and coaches across the sport paying their respects. Nearly every team started their game with a 24-second violation. In Atlanta, Trae Young started their game yesterday wearing Kobe's number 8. He then committed an 8-second violation before emotionally changing to his regular number 11 jersey. He then hit a half-court shot and pointed to the sky and mouthed the words, "Rest in peace, Kobe." In New York City, Madison Square Garden was lit in Lakers colors, and inside the arena, Kobe's numbers were shown on the floor before the Knicks and the Nets played. Kyrie Irving did not play, mourning the loss of his close friend.
You know, I just don't have a lot to say. The news is just devastating to everybody who knew him, who known him a long time. And, you know, he means a lot to me, obviously. You know, he was such a great opponent. You know, he had that DNA that very few athletes can ever have.
Today is one of the saddest days in my lifetime. It seems like a bad dream that you just want to wake up from. It's a nightmare. Just a great leader, just a great champion. But I would miss him. I would miss the friendship.
The coach with which Kobe Bryant won all 5 of his NBA championships was Phil Jackson. He released a statement yesterday. The crash was a tragedy for multiple families. My heart goes out to Vanessa and the families that lost loved ones. Kobe was a chosen one, special in many ways to many people. Our relationship as coach-player transcended the norm. He went beyond the veil. Transcending the norm is a phrase I've heard used in relation to Kobe Bryant a lot since yesterday. And as we bring Ramona Shelburne in on that thought, who has been covering sports in Los Angeles for a long time. And Ramona, Kobe was a beloved figure across the world, but the relationship that city had with Kobe is almost impossible to put into words. How would you try to do it this morning?
Yeah, it's 2 decades of growing up in Los Angeles, of people living with him through being a boy in this league, growing into a champion in this league, going through his own scandal in 2003 with the sexual assault case in Colorado, going through all his back and forth with Shaquille O'Neal and Phil Jackson and all of that drama, you know, seeing him stretched out on the court when he tears his Achilles towards the end of his career. You know, you saw him through the highest of the highs, the lowest of the lows, the ugly, the in-between. And I think people felt like they knew him. He let himself be known, right? I mean, a lot of athletes go through things and they tell you a little bit about what it felt like, but man, Kobe's guts were on the floor all the time. You know, he let people know him, and I think that's why he's such an enduring symbol in this city, not just of athletic greatness or championships or you know, the scowl that he would have on the court when he was really in the zone. It's that indomitable will. I think that's what, when people talk about that Mamba mentality, it's not just that in sports. Like, he would call up authors and actors and directors and he would talk to them about what they did, and he wanted to learn and be great just like they did. And I think that willpower, that striving for greatness, that wanting to be able to live a legendary life, you don't meet many people like that in your life. And I think the entire city, just driving around yesterday, it felt empty.
An intellectual curiosity that was rare and fascinating. Ramona, as best you can, how would you put into words what the people in Los Angeles are feeling today?
I mean, it just feels like there's a hole in everybody's heart. I mean, I went out to the crash site almost because I didn't believe it. Like, you had to see it to believe it, and I still kind of don't. You see all the vigils. I mean, I'm outside here in Staples Center, and there were people staying here all night just waiting for them to open up the gates so that they could go to the vigil here. When somebody like this leaves the world, they leave a legacy, and they leave a lot of lessons that they learned and they went through. But it's different when you can still hear them say it. You know, I was talking to Candace Parker from the LA Sparks, and I said to Candace, I said, you know, I actually would probably have reached out to him to ask what he thought if something like this happened, right? Like, and she goes, yeah, and we know what he would have said. It's just better when he said it. Now it's not going to come from him anymore.
It's hard to believe. Ramona, thank you so much for your time this morning, and obviously your coverage all day long here across ESPN. And, you know, Stephen A., I will come back to you here on this. We were just having this conversation off the air that we're not at a place yet where I think any of us have grown accustomed to talking about Kobe Bryant in the past tense. And that is one of the complicated parts of this, because we are sitting here both as reporters who have covered his career, and in many cases here, yours in particular, Stephen A., a very close friend. And it is very difficult to fathom that someone like this, in this circumstance or any circumstance, is this quickly gone.
It's unimaginable, considering that it was him, because, you know, it was about upward mobility. He was always striving for something more, something greater, and living life to the fullest. And, you know, when I saw him on New Year's Eve, he was happier than I've ever seen him. I mean, he was incredibly and perfectly content with life beyond basketball. And now, obviously, I'd spoken to him on several occasions prior to seeing him on New Year's Eve, but he was loving life, and he was excited about his daughter. He was saying how she was going to end up going to UConn, and she was going to be a star, and she was going to be in the WNBA. He was talking about his ventures, some of the things that he was doing with ESPN Plus, some of the things that he was planning on doing with Walt Disney and beyond. He just had aspirations all over the place, and he was living life like he was some 20-year-old embarking upon an illustrious NBA career. That's how he was looking at life. Moving forward, and to be 41 years of age and unquestionably brilliant in so many ways, to have so much of a life to look forward to after having had already achieved what he achieved over the course of 20 years, to see it gone in such abrupt fashion, in such devastating and tragic fashion, is just hard to put into words right now. It's hard to imagine that he is gone. And you see the players throughout the NBA expressing themselves emotionally because they knew him. They knew him better than we knew him. And they had a lot of love for him. He was a good man, and he was doing a lot of good, and he was planning on doing even more good and being more of an inspiration and more of a motivator, not just to professional athletes, but to human beings everywhere. This was who he was.
Jeremy, you told a story moments ago just about covering him in high school and just that bigger, larger than life feel that he brought to everybody, but also the way that he developed as a man. He grew from a boy to a man. A lot of people watched that happen. What's your just reaction to knowing that development that we all saw and how that factors in for him?
Well, I mean, that's what's so shocking. I mean, it would be shocking in any situation to see this kind of situation. 9 people perish, one of the most famous people on the planet, but we all saw him grow up, right? Over the last 24 years, we watched the saga of this life, and there were so many inflection points. There was so much drama. There were soap operas on the court and off the court. We felt like we were living this process with Kobe, I think, for so long. And it is, you know, we use this word a lot in the last 24 hours when you consider the totality of that legacy. It includes what happened in Colorado in 2003. Very serious allegations. He could have gone to prison for a very long time if that had gone to trial, which ultimately it did not, and had he been convicted. Ultimately, of course, the criminal case was dropped. A civil settlement was reached. Neither party could talk about it after that settlement was reached. But Kobe Bryant would apologize to his accuser. He would say that he came to realize that while he considered that encounter consensual, he came to realize she did not. And so that's part of the legacy and part of the story here. And that, you know, that's something that we have to consider when we consider Kobe Bryant. It was
a full life. We can't, you don't just take little pieces of it. What I will say is that I didn't know him until almost all of that had happened. Almost all of his career had happened. And so as I sit here, what I feel the most sad about, to what Stephen A. said, is that it does feel like he was beginning a new chapter that he was excited about. And the man that we saw him grow into, who many times during his career seemed, who did not always seem to be that happy. He seemed to be so driven and so determined. He seemed incredibly happy in the last few years. And I think part of it was his family. And part of it was that he was so looking forward to what was going to be the next mountain he was here in the process of climbing.
So imagine being the son of a former player. You're fortunate enough to be so very talented that you can enter the NBA at a time where only a couple of players were doing it. You make it to the league, you play for a storied franchise. Earlier in your career, you start in the All-Star game when you're not even starting for your own team. You guys make it to the playoffs, you get the basketball late at Utah, and I remember it vividly, he shot like 3 or 4 air balls late in the game. How do you respond to that is now the key. This is actually the character test on now the Black Mamba that we love and enjoy. He continued to work on his craft and improve, but also kept a level of discipline, intellect, and humility that was separate from other players. So players now get a chance to enjoy Kobe Bryant, and got a chance to enjoy Kobe the ambassador, the last few years of his career and in retirement. But he wasn't the fraternizing type of player, not with the opponent, and a lot of times with his teammates. And he would tell you to win 3 championships with the Lakers back-to-back with Shaq was awesome, but he coveted those other 2. And the reason why he did, because that's when the doubt creeped in. People question his character. Could he win a championship without Shaq? And for him to achieve that and then have a second act is incredible as somebody that was only 41 years old.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about, is that there was so much turbulence on and off the court during his career, and that he seems to have come out the other side of that. You know, Jay, as a young player yourself, you came into the league while he was there. He seems to have become, to Jalen's point, one who maybe didn't fraternize as much while he was playing. He became almost a mentor, it feels to me, to half the NBA. That's obviously an exaggeration, but it feels that way and has felt that way for the last year or 2.
He came up to me at the Players Tribune party and just asked me straight up to my face, "So you had an accident, what are you going to do?" Just riveting, right? I don't have people talk to me that way. And Jeremy, to go back to your point, I'm sure if we were to do a deep dive into everybody's life, maybe some more extreme than the others, but everybody's life is complex, right? And this brings up a bigger issue, is that life doesn't take into account your accolades. It doesn't. It's arbitrary, and as much as we plan for tomorrow, as much as we plan what we're going to do in a year from now, it could be taken away from you like that. And look, this is an extremely unfortunate situation. You had 9 people that pass away. People die every second of the day. Every second of the day, people are passing away. So it brings up the ultimate picture about what are you doing with the time that you have. And I will say, one of Kobe's biggest attributes, every time I saw this dude, he was present. I don't know if you felt that way, Stephen A., but every time I was with him, even in the midst of chaos with people all around or taking pictures, he was present with me. Who am I for him to be present? I think that speaks bounds about who he is as a person.
You know, the interesting thing is Jalen brought up, you know, the Air Bowls in Utah. And, you know, I've been blessed and fortunate to be able to cover a lot of events. I was there when Michael Jordan crossed over Byron Russell and won that sixth championship. I was also there in Utah when Kobe Bryant shot those air balls. And there was a lot of noise surrounding the Los Angeles Lakers at that particular moment in time because he wasn't deemed as an individual that was put in the ideal situation to succeed, because he was so confident and in some people's eyes so cocky that he was sort of thrown to the wolves prematurely because, okay, show what you've got. And so what he does is he flies back to LA after they lose that game in that series. He went straight from the plane to the gym and shot for hours and said, this will not happen again. Knowing the world was ridiculing him, knowing the world was laughing at him, his mentality is, you laugh now, you will not be laughing later. That kind of mentality where no matter what the abyss was that you were in, he would lift himself up from it. You would knock him down, but you would never, ever keep him down. And that's how he was until the day he passed away.
That mentality transcends, obviously, the world.